So I'm gonna first start off by saying you gotta love our boy Mike from that chapter. This dude puts in work like none other. He doesn't pilfer other people's stories. I mean, he uses real archival footage. I mean, he's extremely thorough. And it's a damn shame he only has 1 million subscribers. I mean, he needs to be up there with some of the other ones. Like, uh, I know of late, I didn't know this before until somebody commented. Could be true, it might not be true, but I guess, one of my favorite YouTubers was Mr. Ballin. But somebody said is that he basically steals and just rewords other people's work. Um, I know there was an episode of him talking about these divers that were trying to map this cave on this property, and it was like if you go past this point, like the mortality rate was like, you know, 100%. You would die, and he had like a lot of mistakes in that. And the real diver who was involved in this, he was on a like Zoom call with two other guys, and they were talking about, the falsification of that incident and how it was being portrayed. So I thought that was kind of weird. I thought he would put in more work than that. I'm not dissing the guy whatsoever, but yeah, I thought that was a little unusual. And then somebody said that he does that quite a bit. So if that's the truth, that's sad. Because I do like him. So, anyways, here is a crazy ass story that I still can't wrap my head around. So I hope you guys enjoy.
Guten Tag, you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and it's the Vedic Bizarre Tales of Bizarre People. And here, listen, right? I know I say that a lot, but this one pretty quickly made its way to the top of my list. It's a long list. The characters in this story are true characters, bananas. We got crazy German conmen, we got political stuff, we got inheritance, we got intrigue, but mostly, we got this.
She provided the stage, I provided the play.
You know, I usually like to make little jokes in my videos, which probably only I enjoy, but it keeps me sane. This one, though, it's all around, it's comical. Let's just get...
Tell me he does not seem like he would look cool to hang out with, man. I mean, he would be the type that would just have you laughing your ass off at everything. I mean, the dude's obviously very smart for doing what he does, but I mean, he's a cool little dude, man.
Get straight into this one, which rises like a Valkyrie, soaring until the inevitable Götterdämmerung. Let's give it a go. Germans in Washington, D.C. in the Soul One. It's a story, it's really two stories intertwined. One, a prestigious, well-connected, writer. The other, pure chancer. And then the other being completely unaware. In the center of the posh as hell neighborhood of Georgetown in DC, there's a house. A few, but I'm talking about, one. It doesn't stick out particularly from the other houses that sit beside, but who lived in it sure did. Now, Georgetown, it's famous for its architecture, its history, the university there, the embassies, and it is a rather pleasant place, which is why the storied Viola Drath lived there. She was a socialite, born and bred in Germany, later becoming a correspondent, writer, lecturer, and a rub-a-dub-dub of elbows with, the type of people who live in Washington. To set the scene, she's the Brunhild to our Siegfried, right? And on the 12th of August, 2011, our Siegfried, aka Albert Moot, he's got a couple of AKAs, actually. We'll get to that. He called 911.
DC Emergency 911. How can I help you?
If the police will come quickly, I've just found my wife dead on the bathroom floor.
Okay, she's not breathing.
No, she is clearly dead. Can you please send
That
the
really
police, please?
sounds like you're in just distress.
Albert Moot was the husband of Viola Drath, though there was a 44-year age difference. That's neat. You know, but hey, come on. Nothing stands in the way of true love. Not even walkers. Frau Drath was 91 years of
Oh my
age.
God.
Fair play to her. Here, Moot, 47, and he had just returned from his morning walk, find her dead on the floor of their bathroom in that Georgetown neighborhood. The police arrived, and Albert, who I'll call Al from now on so I don't butcher the German, he was quick to clackety email an obituary to reporters saying, you know, this, it was front page news, right? This well-connected socialite, she had died, he said, of head injuries, you know, in the bathroom, clack, dead. And when first responders and the police, they rocked up, that was their first reaction too. She was 91 years of age, you know, she was an L1 in the bathroom, she must have been having a shower, slipped on some water, and she's off. But, as we see time and time again, appearances can be deceptive. Because later on, and I'm talking a while down the road, while in a hospital bed, our Al would say this about his dear beloved wife's death.
Who do you think murdered her?
Iranians.
The Iranians?
Yes.
Iranians.
And why do you think the Iranians would have murdered your wife? There was no forced entry.
They had a key.
He's a character, alright. So who was he? Well, let's first talk about Viola Drath. Viola was born in Dusseldorf, Germany in 1920 into a family that was doing well for themselves in a post-war Germany. They went on holidays a fair bit, she learned English at an early age, and as she, you know, grew into adulthood, the theatre, my dear boy, that called to her. Not the stage, though. She became a playwright, living in the Munich area, it seems. She was there throughout WW2. Not really much is known about what she was up to during the war, the second one. However, after the Second World War, while acting as an interpreter for the Americans, that's when she met and would marry Lieutenant Colonel Francis S. Drath, who was the United States Deputy Military Governor of Bavaria, and a Kansas fella. According to herself, it was love at first sight. She worked for him as a translator, and swiftly, white dress, rings, all those shenanigans followed, with her moving to Nebraska shortly afterwards. When she moved, she wasn't, you know, the type to be content at home, you know, cooking, babying. She was, you know, a hard worker and smart as a... She got a degree from the University of Nebraska, studying literature and philosophy. She was a writer for a German magazine in Nebraska, and a correspondent for one back home. And she quickly began rubbing elbows with the rich, the glamorous, the big dogs, and it suited her well. She had a couple of daughters, she would travel the world. And in the late 60s, they upped sticks and moved to Washington, D.C., where Viola became the political correspondent for a German
His ass
magazine.
Is still alive, isn't it?
That's when they bought the house, you know, the one that 40 years later, she'd be found dead in. So yeah, in Washington, you know, she met politicians, she met artists, and she was well liked. She was an interesting person interested in interesting things, so, you know, she started knowing the elite, and then became. And it was in 1982, when she was at a news conference, that she met a young fella from her homeland. He was working as an intern for a Republican senator. He was a bit of a dick, but she liked that about him. I don't know why. He was entitled. He was arrogant. He name-dropped to impress. Check it out. He told these wild stories, like something out of a James Bond movie or whatever, and he was kind of a bit of a chubby from being around all this power. He took her to a schnitzel place and was hitting on the woman almost 5 decades his senior.
Wow.
However, she graciously turned down a young Albert Muth. 4 years later, her husband of almost 40 years, Francis Drath, died after a battle with cancer. This was a big blow to...
You know, I cannot get over the fact that there are still people out there that try to make themselves better or important than other people in their own mind, like what he's doing. Especially at that age, man. I mean, you're a goddamn adult. This is the time in your life where you know where your social standing is. I mean, you know, like, why would you be lying about all this shit that you're supposedly doing and keeping up this front? I mean, I'm sure he's just a diva, but golly, I mean, that's just, it's pathetic.
Viola. He was her rock. He handled everything, and now she was alone with their children grown. And, well, Albert soon, he was knocking on her door. In 1990, they married. At that time, Viola was 71, our Al, 26 years old. And that was Albert's key to being a part of what he'd always wanted to be a part of. He often threw big parties, inviting big people, talking politicians, military men, journalists, all sorts of dignitaries. But who really was Al over here? Really? Well, it's difficult to say because I don't even think he knows. And how much Viola knew, that's a question we will never get an answer to. Did she really believe he was Count Albie who got the title of Count? He got that title the same way you might get it from a Nigerian prince online. Or how about that he was a member of the Iraqi Special Forces? And he would not wear underwear because of that. He'll be damned, because apparently the Iraqi Special Forces don't wear underwear. He told a lot of stories, and people were beginning to suspect a couple of things about our Albert. But the police, in August 2011, they were damn sure of something.
She went to the medical examiner's office. Yes. And when she went to the medical examiner's office, the medical examiner performed the autopsy today.
And the result?
And the result is that, clearly the medical examiner's office believes that it is a murder.
You're kidding?
No.
I don't know how.
Well, excuse me, sir. That's the issue at hand, because the only two people that reside in the house is you and her.
Correct.
And you see...
Do we have a time of death?
No, sir. But clearly, the two of you have keys to the house.
Is he trying to set up like an alibi, do you think? Like, I can't remember because I watched this some time ago. I think he was like trying to set up an alibi or something like that. That's why he was asking the time of death, because that's a weird question to ask when you're being interrogated, I would imagine.
Does anybody have keys to the house?
I'm not sure. No, I don't think so, because the daughter asked for one. I don't think so. No.
Okay.
No other keys.
No other keys in the house. Clearly, you told us that the doors were engaged.
Yeah.
Locked.
Those were locked. Nobody could have come. Yeah.
So, clearly, when the medical examiner is telling us...
We know it's a murder, but we don't know how.
I mean, the medical examiner will tell us how, but she clearly is ruled it as a murder.
She has put us in a murder.
Yes.
Okay.
And clearly, that's why we need to know
Understood.
to know your whereabouts. And clearly,
But should we then know how? If you just, how do we?
well, I mean, as soon as the medical examiner tells us it finishes
So then
up,
you-
so we'll know exactly the details of it. But clearly, you understand
Yes.
our concern,
You should be. Yeah.
and that the two of you reside in the same household.
Yes.
Clearly, she was very kind with her money with you, and now there are some. Sir, I'm very positive. Very positive.
But we haven't done time of death yet.
No, sir. The medical examiner will tell us more tomorrow.
So it's basically just you and your wife at home. You and your wife are at home, and your wife is killed.
So you tell me. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're not telling you because we're not the professionals to tell you. We're just going with what the forensic pathologist told us.
Good.
And clearly, we can only go by what the doctor says. We can't determine, we can't rule any, case a homicide. The pathologist rules that as a homicide.
Yeah. I get the picture. It's not a pleasant picture.
And clearly, we want to know if maybe it was an act. How does a woman inside her own home
With her husband.
with her husband?
That's yours to find out. I have no idea.
But did you kill him?
It was finally time for... See, amazing. Al was not... Can we turn that down? Just... Amazingly, he was not the general he claimed to be. In fact, he had this suit custom made in South Carolina. Not a whole lot is truly known about him, but we can piece together a few bits and bobs. Born in 1964 in Cologne, Germany. His mother was in the Christian Democratic Party, a German political party. His father was a doctor in the German army, dying when Albrecht was a baby. Albrecht was happily living with Viola. As he would later say, this.
Your wife was 44 years older than you.
That's correct.
Why did you want to marry her?
Marriage of convenience for both of us.
Meaning?
She provided the stage, I provided the play.
But he would do everything for her. She wasn't alone, and that was her fear.
Wow.
And in return, he was gaining access to the upper class. He would read newspapers for her. He would run around doing basically whatever, anything she needed. He'd cook for her. All that kind of shit. He was less like a husband to her and more like what he used to be. An intern. She was his way into power. And she had money, though they lived frugally in that Georgetown house. She gave him a monthly allowance of about $1,800. He would impress the dignitaries who arrived to Viola's party.
So I have a real big thing against guys who ask or take money from women. That's just...
With tales of spy work, planting listening devices while as an agent for East Germany, working for the UN in war zones, serving in the French Foreign Legion. He also liked his props, which included an eye patch, a cigar, and a riding crop. And he didn't just keep this, two parties. He would email his media contacts, tales of his exploits and other juicy gossip he would hear at these parties. And I'm sure those reporters and journalists read those stories in the way that you might patiently listen to a child tell you a story.
Iranians, they had a key.
That's nice. But he did find his way into prestigious conferences, helped, as he referred to himself as Count Albie, a title given to him by a distant relative who fell off an elephant. and he even had his own crest to go with it. Very believable how he became Count Albert, and he would sign everything and introduce himself as Count Albert. And people, I'm sure, there was like, well, I mean, he sounds like some European nobility or whatever. He's some Habsburg motherfucker. In 1999, he really tried to get his name in the stratosphere when he formed the Eminent Persons Group, intended to advise the UN, which featured current Pakistani President Imran Khan and former US Defense Secretary Robert McNamara, a former French president, and was financed by conspiracy boogeyman George Soros. So, to be clear, Albert bullshitted his way into pretty much everything. All of it was, he just gained access via Viola's reputation, and people slowly began to catch on to his incalculable lies. And he would get into trouble for domestic violence, beating Viola many times, beginning in 19...
He beat an older woman? They should have arrested his ass right then and there, in that interrogation room. Given that history, fucking asshole. I hate when people mess with little kids or elderly people. That's just, they could rot in hell.
1992. He'd be arrested 4 times for it. He was also gay, a secret he stopped keeping from Viola very, very quickly. He even moved in with his boyfriend for a time. He just didn't really give a shit, so I can't imagine that came as a surprise to her. He also beat 7 shades of shite out of his boyfriend. After one particularly vicious beating he gave Viola in 2006, though, she had enough. He fled. He fled, and he would for a couple of years. According to Albert, he went to Iraq, where he went by the name Sheikh Ali al-Muthaba, working with insurgents there to try and end, the ongoing conflicts. He's going to be a peace man between, like, the Taliban and all the other guys who are blowing the shit out of each other. The emails and calls he made regarding his work in Iraq, they'd later be traced to a hotel in Miami, where he was in fact working as a desk clerk. So he really is some man for one man. He eventually returned to Georgetown in 2008. Of course, when he returned, he was now a member of the Iraqi Special Forces General Military, all that stuff. He came back in the uniform. When he did return, he somehow managed to bullshit his way into, like, dinners and ceremonies with actual Iraqi generals. But yeah, he even had this little memorial in Arlington for people killed in the Iraq War, and dignitaries attended. But by that stage, Viola was being seen less and less, and Albert was being barred more and more from the various places he used to establish, as people just realized, wow, he's full of shit. The night before he dialed 911, he went out and got drunk on a date, returning home at 10 p.m. completely flutered. The next morning at about 8 a.m. he called the police.
He is clearly dead.
The police arrived, noticing, hey, you got a little scratchiola on your forehead. What's the deal? That same day, when she was found dead, before her body was even taken out of the house, he went up to her children. She had 2 daughters and then a couple of grandkids and all that. He went up to them with a document, signed by Viola, saying that if she died, he could get about $200,000. It was clearly a fake signature. The police would investigate the house, the crime scene, for about 4 days. And they wouldn't let Al back into the house, obviously. Okay. Crime scene. So during those 4 days, he slept in the park.
Well, did you kill him?
I did not kill my wife.
You did not kill your wife?
No. Am I under suspicion?
Well, I just have if it's just
that
you...
is a legal question. Am I a suspect? Oh, of course I'm a suspect. Yes,
I mean, it's just you and your wife at home?
Yes.
And your wife ends up murdered?
Yes, I get your picture.
Yeah.
Good. What do we do?
Well, I mean, that's why we came to you for answers. I mean...
I don't have them. I'm still a little bit quite shocked by the revelation it was a murder. But we don't know how. The only night's a
Well,
murder.
I mean, when she's rolling in the murder, she's going to give us details tomorrow. What she found.
Sure.
Well, how do you think she was killed?
I mean, you saw her there.
You saw. You saw.
I have no idea.
You have no idea.
How could I if the pathologist doesn't know? Good.
Did you see any weapons in the house?
No, there are no weapons in the house.
Do you have weapons in the house?
No.
Guns, knives?
Well, yeah, kitchen knives, yeah.
Do you think she might have been shot, stabbed?
I think the pathologist would have caught onto that.
Oh, I would hope so too.
Good.
I mean, so no weapons, nothing in the
There are
house.
no weapons in the house. How can I give an explanation if you don't even know the cause of death or the time? So, I mean, the first indication would be, how she was murdered, since the pathologist thinks she was murdered or says she was murdered. And the next question is, what's the time frame is?
Well,
Then we look and hope that it's before 9 o'clock
before 9 o'clock
p.m.
Thursday.
Yeah, because I would have been with the ambassador. So,
Well, who would have killed her before 9 o'clock?
I do not know.
You said the house was secure when you got home, correct?
Correct.
And there's nobody else with keys, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So how would she have?
I'm not going to speculate, sir. Are you in the business of speculation?
No, we're not in the business.
So we're just trying to get an explanation. Not speculation.
I really can't. I'm still under the shock of the revelation it was a murder. I have no idea how. I really don't have no idea how.
Excuse me, guys. I'm sorry.
That coffee is not coming.
Let me check on the
Coffee's
coffee.
not coming. Jesus Christ. This dude is a fucking trip. Just gonna pause this right quick. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that, guys. Usually I don't like to pause the video like that, but I got a very important text message that I needed to respond to ASAP. Usually I don't like to do that. Usually I have my phone on airplane mode, but tonight was just one of those nights, so I'm sorry, guys. Let me just back up a few seconds here.
Coffee, no idea how. Murder.
Explanation. Not speculation.
I really can't. I'm still under the shock of the revelation it was a murder. I have no idea how. I really don't have no idea how. That coffee is not coming.
Let me check on the coffee.
Christ, wow.
You want cream and sugar?
Cream would be nice.
Yes.
The medical examiner found Viola's scalp was bruised, her nails torn, broken ribs, and her neck fractured. She had been beaten and strangled to death. Hier sind sie groß Scheiße. Mein Gott, Helmut. He was charged with second-degree murder on the 16th of August 2011. Witnesses would say he had a proven history of abuse. And at the presumed time of the murder, when he came in drunk, a neighbor heard, at about 3 a.m., a faint cry and a sinister laugh coming from the house.
When police were called last August to this home in upscale Georgetown, the bathroom seemed the scene of a terrible accident. Viola Drath, a well-known D.C. socialite, was dead. As a journalist, she had written for many influential publications. She had kept company with the rich and powerful. Her husband, Albrecht Muth, told police he found the body, and according to Keith Alexander with the Washington Post, he gave a plausible story.
In the beginning, he would say that she fell and she hit her head, and that's what happened.
And it was a tragic accident.
It was a tragic accident. She was 91 years old.
Although Muth, at age 47, was 44 years younger than Drath, coming along after her first husband died, they had been married more than 20 years, united in part by a shared German background. Neighbors like Paige Robinson thought him peculiar.
And it's true that he would walk around in these outfits that were army outfits, and he would have a cigar, and he was a bit eccentric, for sure.
Did you think he was in the military?
No.
But within hours of the body being found, police were turning up evidence that suggests...
On his computer, after the murder, police found evidence of internet searches on flights to Iceland, extradition arrangements with Mexico, and crossing the Canadian border.
You murdered her.
I did not murder my
You
wife.
murdered your wife.
Go off on this podcast.
You're a sadistic,
person. You murdered your
I
wife.
did not murder my wife.
You're a monster.
Piece of
Thank you
shit.
for the compliment.
You're a 140-pound monster.
Thank you for the compliment.
Al proclaimed his innocence, his defense saying there was a lack of evidence.
Who do you think murdered her?
Iranians,
The Iranians?
yes.
And why do you think the Iranians would have murdered your wife? There was no forced entry.
They had a key.
It was the Iranians. Duh! He worked for the Iraqi army, and I don't think they like each other very much at all.
I'll forget everything about myself the minute I go before the judge. Tomorrow I will be completely loony.
You already loon. But I'm talking now.
And tomorrow I will be certified.
A judge has declared the man accused of killing his 91-year-old wife incompetent to represent himself at trial. A doctor testified today that Albrecht Muth is at risk of sudden death after 2 months of refusing to eat while in custody. Muth claims the angel Gabriel has told him not to eat. He's accused of beating Viola Drath to death inside their Georgetown row house. The trial is set to begin March 25th.
He later fired his lawyer and wanted to represent himself. And he would be declared incompetent to stand trial after he went on hunger strike in jail. And he also said he was visited by the Archangel Gabriel, so there you go. And evaluations, multiple psychiatric evaluations were done on him.
So yes, I mean, I am basically where I am because I'm the convenient suspect from the beginning. The police zeroed in on me. No, of course not. I wasn't even there when she was killed.
Where were you?
I was out. I did not return to the house till approximately 10 o'clock.
But basically you're killing yourself doing this.
No, I'm not killing myself. I'm opposed to killing myself. I'm a Roman Catholic.
So you'll start eating if it gets serious.
I will start eating when I'm so commanded.
He would later be found competent to stand trial as much as he tried to dodge it.
After a lengthy psychiatric evaluation, Albrecht Muth has now been deemed competent to stand trial. Doctors say while his behavior may have appeared bizarre and his beliefs delusional, it was all an act.
The charge against Al would later be upped to first degree. As the trial ramped up, it became pretty clear what happened for such a mysterious person. Viola was going to kick him out. Finally, she had enough, and she'd cut him out of her will. She'd cut him out of everything. Albrecht knew this. He got drunk, and he went home and killed her. And like I said, before her body was even removed from the house, he went to her family. She signed this saying, I can have 200 grand, so cough it up. In January 2014, a jury found him guilty of first-degree murder, and he was sentenced to 50 years in prison, where he remains to this day. What a guy he was. His story just gets more insane as it progresses. Some guy, Mr. Moot, some chancer. He got away with it for some time too, which is impressive. I mean, he was a complete and total monster.
You have a grown-ass man basically wearing fucking costumes that he had made for himself. Jesus Christ. I mean, I'm at a loss for words.
For what he did to Viola, such a prestigious and accomplished person. But to get there, I'm still kind of almost impressed. Still though, how anybody could believe his bullshit is amazing to me. Though, I mean, this whole story is set in Washington, D.C., where there's lots of politicians, and they're always full of shit anyway, so he fit right in. It's gonna be hard to beat this guy. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch the whole video to the point where we are now, which is at the end, in case you didn't notice. I'm sure you did. Go on. Here, I'll see you as always real soon in the next whole video. Until then, you know it. You know what I'm gonna say. It's that I just want you to take care of yourself. Because I love you. Mike out.
We love you too, Mike. You're the man. You're the funniest presenter in the world. Dude, those are gonna go up. Those gotta go up, those numbers. He puts in the most work out of any YouTuber I've seen so far. And I'm not talking about the guys that have like shitloads of money where they do these huge extravagant events, but I mean, he puts in work on these, like, you know, using archival footage. Not a lot of people are doing that, so man, what a trip. That piece of shit taking advantage of an older woman. Well, hell. Let's see if I'm going to try to pop off a song tonight. One more. But if not, definitely will tomorrow. But let's see what I could do. Peace.